With us, myself, Emily Camardo, I'm the chair of the subcommittee, and Kristen Clegg, who is another commissioner on the subcommittee. Oh, can you exit out of that thing so I don't see my words being spelled out for me there?
Yeah, I never ever spelled out properly. A second.
Hi, Hector. And Roland here, obviously, as well. So this is our second subcommittee meeting. We're in the, I would say, the process of trying to understand what do residents from Arlington, what kind of issues do they come across? So we're, last week talked to constituent services about, and Ben provided us a call log really of all the housing related issues that they get. So we're looking forward tonight, wanted to hear from both you and Hector about what are you getting as questions, as things that residents need help with that would target our what kind of alternate dispute resolution would make sense for the county.
Yeah.
So today on the agenda is really about those two things. Anything you'd want to add?
No, I think to me, it's more about making sure that all of our residents understand that there are people out there who do want to hear from them and want to resolve the issue. So it's so much about communication from us to let them know that we're here. But is it just us? Is it other parts of the county? You know, do they understand the ombudsman? Do they understand zoning and code enforcement and anything that we can do to help, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I also think it's also providing an alternative to always having to find go the legal route.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
What else can happen? What are the other options? You know, whatever it might be.
Yep.
As opposed to having those.
So I think today, Saul, if we can start with you, about just like what you all at Bugatti, what services you provide that we should make sure is known and part of this process, and then what are you hearing from the people that you serve that they need help with or are unknowns for them when they're trying to navigate housing in Arlington?
I'm happy to go through a list of issues that we assist with, but I also have a, excuse me, my voice runs out at the end of the day after talking so much. Let me see, go to secure primary screen recording to get permission to start sharing. Okay. I have a PowerPoint, but this thing is telling me here that it needs permission for me to do some sharing. So let me see if I can figure that out. Says go to security, privacy, and screen recording.
As far as in settings.
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Do meeting options. Yep.
Who can present? Everyone.
Yep. Okay.
You already have permission to present.
Okay, let's see if it works. Okay. Let's see if it opens up.
It's open. We can see it.
Oh, I don't see it here on my screen. So, okay. Do you see my cursor moving around?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go home. And let's see if I can. Are you able to see the screen clearly, or should I do the slideshow? Because I don't know if it's
Show option, it's probably easier.
okay. Let's see.
Play from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Got it.
It says you want access to the microphone. Okay, go ahead. Okay, I don't see why that's coming up on the screen, but let's see.
You have fiscal year 220, and then it went to 2021, and then
Yeah.
came back to the first page.
Okay, great, great. That's where I want to be. So thank you for letting me know.
Let's see all of that.
Yeah, this is odd. I haven't actually done screen sharing on Teams, so bear with me. So as long as you see the screen there, all right. So this is We Are Bogota, and these are I'm going to be talking about categories of complaints. That is the title I used. This is what you told me, Rolda, that you wanted to hear about, or the commission was interested. So I'm going to go through them. All right. So you wanted at least 3 years of categories that we've helped people with. So I'm going to start with FY20, and I am going to include partial FY23 up to date as of the end of the last quarter. All right.
So can I
Firstly,
go real fast? Are you gonna share this slide deck with us?
I can.
Okay, just, it'd be nice to have an email of it so we don't have to take too many notes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, well, I can send you the list of categories.
Okay.
But the reason why I included this is to say that you see the number of, I guess, a numerical number next to the categories.
Yeah.
But as far as helping residents with housing, the major issues or areas, categories that we help them in is avoiding eviction, such as when a resident receives breach of lease notice, either a 2130 or a 30-day notice, or a notice for eviction. Now, when it comes to like someone has already received a summons to court, we make the referral to legal aid. But as far as any other steps before going to court, we help the residents communicate with management to be able to resolve or remedy any issues that could potentially lead to an eviction. We also do some explaining of LIHTC rules for residents that live in affordable housing. There are regulation rules and policies and documentation that the residents have to present. Even though many residents have lived in properties for quite a number of years, or even new ones that are moving from the market into affordable housing, they sometimes are confused about the documentation that's required for applying or for recertifying for a unit. So we do some of that, and this is what you find under housing, that category. So it's assisting residents understanding that. Recertification process, that's farther down the line there. It also includes that explaining, what the income requirements are, what to do when you're applying for an apartment, the income ranges, how to add new people to the lease or removing people, and negotiating with management to avoid evictions when it comes to recertification, because there are some things that change in a family that's living in affordable housing, and so there are ways that they can remedy those issues. In filling out paperwork for residents. Also, lease issues, it's listed here. Breach of leases, I mentioned that, explaining how that works and then how they can remedy or how to resolve things, or how to seek assistance from legal aid. Maintenance issues, that is one of the highest categories you see there. Housing stands out with all the issues that I talked about, maintenance without reference to code. And some of the other slides, you're also going to see maintenance with reference to code. So when we identify an issue that the resident could be referred to code, we do send them, and so that's a separate category. You don't see it here because it didn't show up in this particular year. Not everything ends up, being, well, code is very specific on how they get involved, and I'm sure that, you guys have heard presentations from code enforcement at the Tenant Landlord Commission, so I don't need to go into much detail on that. Management issues is a big area. You see a big number here, 41 issues for that one particular year. That includes a lot. Issues usually is residents come to us when they run into rude or disrespectful staff and management. And that includes other issues that are part of this chart right here, but management issues being the primary issue. And so that's when we step in and help the residents to resolve those issues with management. So, we intervene and communicate with management to help resolve those. Neighbor issues, we started tracking that category too, because there are residents that have issues with their neighbors. It's usually noise complaints or not just loud, being disruptive, but they may have had some problem with the resident. The resident could be a resident that is giving them problems or complaining, but it's back and forth, and just helping them understand relationship on how to live together, how to respect the noise ordinances, and oftentimes communicate that to management. So we help them write letters, and they're like, okay, this is in response to such complaint, or if they're complaining about a neighbor, and putting that in writing and letting management know that, hey, such neighbor is being disrupted, that having loud noises past 10 p.m. at night, past the county noise ordinances. Recertification shows up quite often, and I talked about that briefly earlier under housing, but we decided to break it into a separate category just to keep track of what issues, recertification being an issue separate from everything else. Relocation shows up, and I need to move the screen because I can't see it. Relocation is self-explanatory. This is assistance when there's a project that is going through redevelopment or renovations, and relocation is required. And often, for this, there is a relocation plan in place that the Tenant Landlord Commission monitors. But if anyone comes to us for assistance, either understanding the relocation process or they're having an issue with relocation, we help communicate that with management, or if the landlord is using a third-party relocation specialist, we help them communicate whatever issues they're having. Rental assistance is large. That is when we make referrals for someone who's late on rent or is having issues or will have issues, have lost a job. Now this picked up, and the following year as well, you see it going up because of COVID, but even before then, it was an issue. So a lot of people having issues paying rent, whether it's a one-time thing or they need a housing grant or referrals to Thrive or DHS. That goes through that. Security deposit, self-explanatory. Someone needs assistance or wants to know what the law says about them getting a security deposit, or if any deductions will be taken off their security deposit. We help explain that. That was in FY20. All right, FY21, similar categories. Housing lease, you can see those there. Rental assistance, security deposit, we started tracking that. So you see more here. And then in FY21, we started tracking issues with utilities and billings. This is primarily about what was happening over at the Serrano. The issues over there started with Serrano separating utilities from the rental, from rent. And so that's why you see a high number there. And then we kept tracking that going forward. In FY22, you see that now utility, I'm going to go back to 21. That showed up a high number of 15 because, residents started calling us about that. By FY22, that dropped a little because people were understanding about, how the system was going to work over. And like I said, primarily this was over the Serrano. So then we had some residents come back the next year. This is usually around the fall in October when they change or raise the utility charges. Again, now here you see home ownership show up. Some people do ask questions about home ownership. So we make referrals for that, and usually Karen Surface, that's what she does. So we make referrals to that or to all the programs, or just information. We tell them, guide them over to Arlington County's website to look for information on home ownership. And let's see, anything else that changes here? We did have a maintenance referred to code in FY22. FY22 is from July 2021 through June 2022. Let's see what else. That's pretty much the same. The categories stay pretty much the same there.
And the huge number for relocation there, that's that project, right? The Greenbrier.
That was Columbia Gardens. That's why that was a huge, yeah. That's why you see the high number there. So, yeah. Again, if you look at the numbers, housing is pretty high. Maintenance is also high, and management issues. Usually people coming back with complaints saying, management was either rude or disrespectful or dismissive towards my complaints, or I have an issue with my apartment and they're not fixing it. So that all falls under that. That's why you see a high number. But, like I said, the primary issue there is that staff has been dismissive, rude, or disrespectful. So that's why it's a separate category from everything else. But usually there's other things behind it, Yeah. So, and then this here is just up to the last quarter that was completed for FY23, starting from July 1st, 2022 through December.
So question, the maintenance and reference, the code is sort of high there, and then higher compared to a couple of years before?
Without reference to code.
Oh, okay. Without.
Yeah, it's without, yeah. Usually referred to code is very minimal,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this would just be residents having maintenance issues that are referred, or that you have to sort of navigate with the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish.
So you just acting as a mediator. Well, and we don't use that term, but that's where you have to assist the residents.
I say intervene,
Okay.
We assist them to resolve those issues, either communicating directly with management, or we help them draft a letter so that they can submit it to management. And when we do that, we give them time. We tell them, hey, wait a couple of days to see if there's a response from management. If there isn't, come back to us, and then we'll get involved. And if needed, we escalate higher, to regionals, or then go to ownership.
Yeah.
Thank you. And is this the last slide you had?
Yeah, that's the last slide. Sorry. How do I end up sharing here?
How do Reddit get in touch with you? With Bugata?
Give me one
second.
second.
How do they know to call you?
How do they know to call us?
Yeah.
It's a lot of word of mouth. We've been in the community for 30 years already. So a lot of people know us, even though there's always new residents coming in. We primarily work, a lot of our, clients are from the low income and immigrant communities. And even though there's turnovers, I can use Buckingham as an example. It's like the gateway to Arlington, where residents usually come, and along Columbia Pike as well. And so even though there's new residents, the neighbors just tell them, hey, you have an issue, go and talk to Bugata. And then we do outreach as well and education. So we do workshops on tenants' rights, lease, understanding your lease. And through that, we get people and they make referrals as well. So, it's a lot of word of mouth. Residents refer their friends or family. And usually they have extended family living in usually the same property sometimes, or throughout Arlington. And so that actually keeps us pretty busy. Yeah.
So do you all track the number of people who go to your website and use your website as a mechanism to learn
I get some Google Analytics about, the visits to the website and all that, but no, I don't track it. I do get the reports from Google.
I guess I was on your website knowing that you were gonna come, and one of the things that I was thinking was that we, and again, yeah, it's your website, but there sort of needs to be an FAQ section, like some frequently asked questions.
That's in the planning. It's in the works.
Oh,
Like
okay,
common questions that people ask. Yes.
right,
It's a website in the works, and I kind of put it together, but I do have someone helping me now. Yeah.
okay, super, because, yeah, the tenant page, in my mind, I know you do lots of things, but it didn't feel like it was robust enough to let
Yeah.
people know how to help. And one of the things that we keep talking about over and over again in the commission and in the subcommittee is making it easy for people to get the answers that they need.
Yeah.
And you're such a valued resource in our community that FAQs would be great. So
Yeah.
I'm glad it's in the works.
Yeah,
And it would
yeah,
be
my
very
old
interesting to see how many people go and where do they go so that you could focus your energy on getting the right information to the right people.
So I did have that in my old website, and I'm using a different program now to recreate this. But I did have some links, and then Arlington County actually redid their website as well. So some of those links were broken, but I did have links that link to the Arlington website. Arlington actually has a page with FAQs as well. It's like, what do I do about my security deposit, or can a landlord just kick me out? So yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I'm glad to see that that's coming. And again, I don't know how many of your clients, if you will, go there, but again, I mean, almost everybody knows about Bugatas. In the landlord-tenant world, if you are an immigrant or from that population, they know about you.
Yeah. No, not a lot of. Well, the reason why we decided to have a website is just to have that online presence. So if anyone wanted to look up Bugata, the main goal was like, okay, let's have online presence and put our addresses and our phone numbers here. So if anyone looks it up and don't have a contact number, they're able to go to the website and contact us through there. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I do want to upload, resources and links to other resources. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Does Arlington County refer people to Bugata?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
I get some from
The information.
Hector has referred some, and also the ombudsman. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. It hasn't been that many from the ombudsman, but I guess a lot of people do reach out to the Housing Information Center. I've seen some of the reports from Hector, and they have a high count as well. So he gets a lot of those calls too. Well, I guess Hector can speak to that.
So obviously, our subcommittee can't handle everything. We meet once a month, just, basically 3 or 4 of us here. And looking at the information that you provided us over the past 3+ years, obviously what comes out is the management issues right? But our goal is to help with dispute resolution. And I'm not sure we can help with surly staff or disrespect, which, really lousy. I mean, those are terrible, but that's not something we could do. If you were to say, hey, dispute resolution committee, if you could focus on 2 things that are, sort of, I'm going to call them part of the VRLTA, landlord to tenant communication experience, what would they might be? And maybe you throw out a few to us and maybe we can help based on our experience and time. What could we do? Because we're dispute resolution.
I think that when word gets out that Arlington County has this subcommittee on alternate dispute resolution, I think that will probably help. I'm hopeful that it will help let staff, from staff that has this reputation to be rude and disrespectful and nasty towards residents, that they'll know that there now is this group that is with the county. And I can tell you, it makes a great deal of difference. For example, when we run into a situation where we're not able to resolve something because the landlord or management will be like, oh, whatever, when we get someone from the county involved, a staff person, that person has the clout. And I think that you guys, through this this ADR, will have the clout of the county as well. And I think that, hopefully people will be a little more respectful, and landlords will hold their management company or whoever they hired to do that, right? Have them be a little more respectful and more customer focused on customer service.
How could we do that? I mean, what do you envision that our subcommittee could do?
There have been times where Tenant Landlord Commission has gotten involved, and now this is one of the things. I know you all want more residents to come to the Tenant Landlord Commission with their issues and concerns, right, to talk to you. But basically, a lot of what's happened. Well, let me speak about the past. Other Tenant Landlord Commissions have taken the initiative. I've seen not represented, but commissioners go and attend tenant meetings to show their presence, like we're here. And also when people come to the Tenant Landlord Commission with concerns, there have been instances where the commission sends a letter to the landlord and it's like, hey, listen, this complaint came to us. Can you answer it? Or sometimes even invite the landlord to come over to the Tenant Landlord Commission with a response.
Yeah.
So that could be something from our subcommittee if we get a resident who comes with any complaints. It's valid till we deem it not valid, right?
Yeah.
We could ask David if we could write a letter on behalf of the committee, obviously run it through him first, to the landlord, just letting them know that it's been heard. Because, so do you think that when a resident comes to the commission and makes a complaint about disrespect and lack of attention and dismissiveness, do you think that resident is telling the landlord I'm going and to do this, or do you think it's sort of more on the down low?
I'm not sure understanding the question. You mean that the resident warns?
If a resident shows up at a landlord-tenant commission to complain about their landlord, do you think that the resident has told the landlord, I'm going to complain about you?
No, because usually their one interaction is with management, and oftentimes the owner probably doesn't even know what's going on, or maybe now there are times where the owner knows and they're like, okay, just allow management to do whatever, and get away with whatever it is. So, but oftentimes even if the owner knows, they may say, hey, I wasn't aware that management was treating my residents in such a way, right? So no, I don't think residents are warning the landlord and telling them, hey, if you don't help me resolve this, I'm going to go to Tenant Landlord.
If I may give my opinion on that, I receive a lot of calls with, like Saul said, that of tenants that complain about management, or not only management, but the people that work in the complexes. And my recommendations to them is always document, send a letter complaining the management to the manager itself, because if you send it in writing, he will have to respond to it and keep a copy on file. So I recommend them to have written communication to them, and if possible, and it's happening to other tenants, also that they complain and do it in writing. The purpose for this is that eventually this will get to the ears of management, upper management, and they will be able to do something about it. And in response to your question, do they know? Management knows. They may not know directly, but if they receive, let's say, the directors of a company receive a letter from the tenant landlord office that says, we hear that tenants are complaining about this issue, and there's documentation on it, they can really follow it. So I always do the recommendation, and if tenants come and complain, there is a letter, then management will be able to do something about that manager.
Now,
So my
about the question-
recommendations to them is always document, document, and document. Even if you're complaining about the person, to the same person you're writing the letter, because that has to go into the file. And I think Saul does the same.
Yes, that's correct. And we ask for evidence, so that when they escalate things, there's evidence like a letter that was written. And we tell them, hey, listen, if you go and deliver the letter, the proper way is to send it by mail, certified mail, right? Or send an email, because the email has a timestamp, date and time when you sent it. Also tell them, take a picture of the letter when you deliver it, right? The picture is going to have a stamp on it as well. But also, if you're having an issue, that is not getting fixed, take pictures of that as well. That's going to help you. Now, as far as your question, when I answered it, Kristen, I was actually thinking about market rate residents. That it's difficult sometimes to track who the owner is. And that's what I was saying. But when it comes to like affordable housing, obviously we know how to contact AHC or APA or Wesley. So we escalate those things and we tell residents, well, if this is not getting fixed, then, go to ownership. Yeah. But when that issue is not getting resolved, we tell them, hey, you can go to the Tenant Landlord Commission. But lately when they come to the commission, as you'll have seen, it's like the commission just hears out what the concern is. I don't know what happens to it, but there's really no solution to it. I mean, it's just the person was heard, but no real solution offered. Or
That's not true.
Because we do all the solutioning is offline,
Yeah, so that's
so
not true.
it's taken to.
Yeah.
all right,
So
we
we
don't
follow up with them, certainly if there are instances, like I can only think of 2 cases last year where there's actually follow-up. There was an instance with the lawyer who represented a tenant about a property on 7th Road with, all the issues that he highlighted. And we followed up with that, doing research with zoning and code enforcement and seeing what property violations that they might have found, and we followed up, and we also wrote to the landlord, and we invited the landlord to come to attend the commission meeting. That did not happen, so that kind of fell off at that point because the landlord didn't respond.
They're not here. Yeah.
And then there was another instance, and when the gentleman came and he was complaining about AHC and not being able to get out of his lease for a property where they weren't enforcing smoking, the no smoking ordinance. And we followed up with that, and that in fact got resolved. So maybe the report of the resolve or what was a follow-up action is not, maybe we need to do a better job of reporting to the commission on that. But certainly in those 2 instances, that gentleman got out of his lease.
So I think, yeah, I agree with what Rhoda just said. It's like when the commission gets involved and the county gets involved, we don't really get to see if that was resolved, what follow-up steps happen. I recall the guy about the issue with the smoking that wanted off the lease because he contacted us as well, and we gave him some guidance, and he was able to resolve by writing to the regional over that was managing that property. Yeah. So I guess seeing, that the results of when the commission and staff gets involved, I think that would be helpful for people to see that there are, solutions to some of the issues, yeah. But, there have also been times when the resident comes and the commission may be like, oh, well, we just recommend that you seek a lawyer for this. But I think that having ADR being involved now would help because a lot of residents, especially those coming from low income and immigrant communities, can't afford a lawyer. Or may not qualify for legal services that they may get through Legal Services Northern Virginia or Legal Aid Justice Center because they may not qualify due to income. It may just be a little bit over the threshold, but not enough to be able to afford a lawyer as well.
And I mean, the whole point of our subcommittee is to help come up with ways not to have to contact a lawyer.
Yeah.
So that we can help mediate.
Yes.
I think also coming up from some of the complaints and calls that we get, in my mind, there could be an option, and hopefully, I don't know, sorry, the commission, as the part of this subcommittee, it's probably something that we can look into. Some of these types of complaints where bodies such as the Ombudsman's office, and it's probably could evolve into something bigger than that, like a consumer regulatory something, consumer protection agency or something, which is the situation, which is how it's done in Fairfax. So all of these issues that may involve some tenant issues, they can be resolved through this regulatory agency. It's a consumer affairs agency, the department, I think is what it's called. And because a lot of people really either can't afford it and want to avoid going through a legal process. And I think one of the things that I had in the back of my mind is to sort of keep record of some of these types of questions that come up that seem they are more suited to be resolved in an agency of that kind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole different thing in terms of making a recommendation.
Like when it's like poor customer service is what tenants are experiencing.
Well, that, but in addition to, I need to keep examples of some of these things. They're just not clear cut, in that way.
Yeah.
They're not covered by VRLTA law, but it's something that is bothersome and it ought to be addressed somewhere else.
I think like that, the smoking issue, not being able, I mean, it's a huge issue as a landlord now because more and more properties are going non-smoking and more people are smoking marijuana in the apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And Arlington County, the police department does not come out unless there's a belief that there's distribution going on.
Mm-hmm.
For personal consumption,
right.
They're not doing anything. And so they're putting it all on the landlord as a smoking issue, right? Well, problem is you can go up to the 10th floor or the 3rd floor and you can't tell. There's nobody put a sign on the door, yeah, we're the ones smoking marijuana, right? And as a landlord myself, we've had many non-smokers very upset with us because we aren't able to resolve this issue. And in this instance, it would be really great to have some residents to talk to them about it for 2 reasons. One is to help them explain, it's not, in most instances, it's not that the landlord doesn't want to help, but our job is if we're going to enforce a lease violation, we have to verify, right? I mean, we can't go, if we get to a point where there's eviction and we go before a judge, we always have to be thinking in the back of our mind, when, Judge Clegg, starts to talk to us, and they say, so how do you know it was, Emily? Well, we smelled under her door. We think it's her. The complaint always comes from across the hall, right? Well, you're not gonna get evicted.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the resolution is education. Mm-hmm. And then, in my mind, one of the things that, we're doing with our landlord in our communities is we're tracking that. And so that we can go to the Arlington County Police Department and say, hey, look, I've had 3 people, 5 people, 2 people, 8 people demand to be let out of their lease because we, Ditmar, are not upholding our obligation, which is to have peaceful enjoyment in your own home.
Yeah.
And even though our lease clearly states we can't keep people from smoking and, we're not guaranteeing you a smoke-free, you can say that till you're blue in the face. You're not getting peaceful enjoyment of your home. So, Ditmar and I'm gonna say 75% of the cases, we're letting people go. And so we'd like to be able to demonstrate to Arlington County Police Department that we need your support because this is real money. We're losing money when we let people move out. So I know that's a little bit off topic for you, Saul, but I do think that if we as a committee heard more about that, we could start to talk to people and say, hey, we can't resolve this, but we want you to keep talking about it because maybe the Landlord Tenant Commission could also go to Arlington County Police and say, you can't not address this.
Yeah.
Your taxpayers are not happy. Your residents, your landlord taxpayers aren't happy, and your resident taxpayers aren't happy. So, again, a little bit of a soapbox. Sorry about that, but that smoking issue is big.
Complicated. Yeah.
It is a real issue that everyone is got to deal with, both residents, the landlords, and whoever you have managing your properties. Yeah, so.
But if the landlord doesn't take time to listen, that's a problem. 2, attempt to resolve it, and 3, sort of educate the residents. And I don't want to say call the non-emergency number yourself,
Right.
but I would like to say call the non-emergency number yourself. The more calls Arlington County Police get about this, the more likely they're going to feel compelled to do something. And so maybe it's not resolving the issue, but it's helping educate and elevating.
Elevated.
Right.
So you might want to get on to Hector's piece.
Okay, yes. Quarter of almost.
Sorry.
I will stick around for a while, but I have another meeting to go to at 8.
Okay.
We're
I'll
supposed to
be
be
here
done.
back.
Yeah, we'll be done by it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Question, is my screen still sharing? I don't.
No,
No,
you're
you're fine.
not seeing it.
Okay, so
Can you make that just a wee bit bigger? Please.
I can, but it won't fit. So
Oh, we can do,
Okay.
we can go to more.
I can go up to it.
You can hit more.
Oh, it's bigger. Good. I think-
bigger.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think we can see it. Settings?
Okay, so
I think it's-
the
It's not the same as mine.
in the Housing Information Center, we do receive calls regarding homeownership, affordable units, and tenant landlord rights and responsibilities. Here in this report, I only pulled what is tenant landlord rights and responsibilities. We have them separated under 3 sections. The beginning of a lease agreement that includes applications, fees, the lease agreement, security deposit, and inspection. The second is during the lease, we find breach of lease, court cases, eviction, low on lease, maintenance without referral to court, maintenance with referral to court, rent escrow, rent increases. Este is radio utility billing system and security deposits. And at the end of the tenancy, we cover court, eviction, security deposit, termination and notices to vacate, and walk-through inspections. Under those 3, we also have 2 categories that we have: non-VRLTA and VRLTA. VRLTA are regular apartment complexes. Non-VRLTA are private landlords or condominiums, houses, townhouses, landlords that rent of their own. Usually we can determine if it's one of the other. In some circumstances, we are not able to determine that, or they don't indicate that, so we put it on a not available category. We also separate the calls by landlords or tenants. So if it's a landlord that is calling, usually we receive calls in general from independent landlords that need some guidance. Companies usually don't because they have their own lawyers. We have received calls from managers just to clarify an issue or make sure that they're aware of the situation instead of contacting their lawyers because they charge a lot. So we receive the calls from the tenants in the same distribution, and we have totals. This is, for example, fiscal year 2020. We had a total calls under tenant landlord of 910. Of those, 139 were from landlords and 771 were from tenants. Now, the biggest issue that tenants have is usually law and lease, eviction, and we don't have much breach of lease. The numbers we reflect in here are not all of them. Usually, a tenant calls and he may have one or two issues, maybe more, and we pick up only the more relevant one. If there are more than 4 or 5 issues, we put it on the general law and lease section because we're giving them advice on a lot of issues. It's the same for the landlords or the tenants. Mostly tenants also call in regards to breach of lease. Generally, they want to break the lease and they're locked in a contract. Or in a few cases, they can see if they can pursue breach of lease for maintenance issue against the landlord. It varies. At the end of the lease, the questions are usually security deposits and how to give termination or notice to vacate. The issue is because they understand that the law of Virginia requires only 30 days, but a lot of complexes have increased that to 60 days. And I've seen a case where they have to give a notice at 365 days in advance. So at the time they sign the lease, they have to tell them we're not going to renew it. And that's perfectly valid. So we have that for fiscal year 2021 too. This year the calls from landlords were 210, from tenants were 863, and fiscal year 2022 we have a decrease on the number of calls. The landlords that called were 108, tenants were 626. And fiscal year 2023, that comes up to here, to this point, we have 46 landlords and 288 tenants that have called with issues they have. Mostly, as you can see, are maintenance, law and lease, and eviction. We're getting a lot of calls in regards to eviction. Now, in this, a lot of times, depending on the situation, pest control goes on maintenance without referral to code, or sometimes go to law and lease. We get a lot of calls in regards to pest control because A lot of construction in Arlington have created disturbances, and pests tend to move where there are that kind of disturbances. We refer them to the Department of Human Services under vector control. That sometimes help. We refer them to code enforcement if there are places where the pests are getting through, because sometimes there are holes, and code enforcement could go and verify that there are those issues, and maybe trying to cover them or fixing the holes, or fixing those issues will help in general. We also refer them to Bugatti sometimes, because well, the people we refer more to Bugatti in my end is people that have issues communicated with management. In those cases, it could be language barrier, I or help understanding the lease agreements, because a few issues tenants have is that they don't understand the lease agreement, or they cannot communicate the issue with the landlord, and the landlord is not understanding them. We refer, depending on the situation, also to code enforcement. We refer them to legal services of Northern Virginia. In cases of eviction, we also refer them to the Department of Human Services and their rent assistance programs to see if they could get some help there. We advise them on issues they may have with the sheriff. On issues they have with neighbors, we recommend that they contact the police, they contact management in writing, so it will be documented, and they see if other neighbors can also participate on doing that. Because the more information or the more complaints you have, like they said, it can create a record and trail, and that will be used by management to take action if possible.
Is there anything issue that they'll call about that housing staff will like provide or walk them through rather than referring them somewhere else?
I generally do that.
Yeah, so
but
you
I
walk.
will also give them options, and what most of the calls demand is that we take action.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're not able to do so.
I was gonna say, what does action usually look like? Is a lot,
Well, they want us to go and inspect the units. They want us to go and talk to the landlord and force him to do something. A lot of times we do contact management or landlord in issues, and we can get good results. A lot of times I tell them, send an email to management and send a copy to us, to our email address, because we may not be able to do something, but them seeing our name will make them do something on that. And it works sometimes, because they said, "Oh yeah, I copy you," and because they said the management responds, and since they respond to all, we see that they are taking action on that. But a lot of times tenants don't want to do that either.
In some instances too, depending on what it is, like a recertification situations where people may have questions about that, they don't understand why the rent has gone up, and particularly in the CAF properties. There are lots of sources.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a compliance officer or an inspector, and so they can be brought into the whole thing. So we try to assist them in terms of, you know, making connections with DHS or with the particular staff who can
Yeah.
actually call them back and
Okay.
try to resolve the issue, depending on what it is. Code enforcement, we can't, as has been explained to us. The resident has to make that contact
Okay.
directly because of the law.
What is, if a resident called and talked to Hector, what is the difference between them calling Hector versus them coming to a TLC commission meeting and sharing there? Do they end up going to the same
And do
place?
you want to do that? Because he would often deal with it before, and sometimes that would eliminate them even coming here, but
Yeah.
go ahead, Peter.
A lot of times I have recommended tenants that come to the commission meeting and do present their issue to the landlords. And yes, they did that. And it's in some cases issues that maybe the commission writing a letter could, you know, help them do something. A lot of times I tell them because there are some issues that the commission may want to be aware of.
Okay.
And in the majority of cases, they have contacted our office and they knew about the commission because we told them.
Okay. And when you, what, how would I phrase this? I think where a lot of resident frustration would be is if they call someone and then you get referred, oh, call this person, and you get referred back. How often do you think that actually happens with like the referring to the referring?
Well, I can answer that. Okay. I've been doing this for some time and get a lot of calls from people that were sent to me without any reason.
Yeah.
Let's say people doesn't know how to explain themselves. For
Yeah.
example, a tenant can go and to the Department of Human Services and said, my landlord is not listening to me. And the Department of Human Services will go, hey, you have to call tenant landlord because you said landlord. And they call me and they said I have to talk to you. And I go like, okay, let me hear. Oh, well, my landlord is saying that he haven't received the check of rent assistance and now they're going to evict me. And I said, okay, then call again to the same number you have called before. But instead of saying my landlord, say I received rent assistance and I need to talk to my social worker because my check hasn't arrived.
Right.
The same goes for code enforcement. Code enforcement transfer calls to me saying my landlord's not doing this. And I go and say, well, tell code enforcement that you have issues with your faucet or you have holes in your kitchen and you need them to cover up and the landlord's not responding to it. Then code enforcement will come and do something on that. So I've learned to listen to what they said. And depending on that, I can give them either a straight answer of what they can do, or I can tell them you can go this, or you have this many options to do it.
Yeah, I used to work phones as well, so I understand that. I assume that the county, like, there isn't like a call center software or something like that, so you can see who they've talked to or information about it when they call. Like, there's no like central.
No. And I think that's what Ben is
Yeah.
pointing out.
Yeah.
That there isn't a central system like that where, you know, there's talk about it.
Yeah.
But there isn't an opportunity.
And I'm sure like when like Hector, when someone calls you and if they need help with their rental assistance, like, are you able to see who their social worker is to contact them directly? Or you have to put them through the front door.
Well, I don't know who the social worker is.
Yeah.
And because of privacy issues, we don't have access to that information.
Because that was a big frustration that I feel like we got from the discrimination subcommittee, is like the social worker changed hand, they don't know who the social worker, no one else knows who the social worker.
Yeah, but they don't need a specific, they may be assigned to social worker, but
Yeah,
all of them have the same access. So if they call the main intake number, they can pull files out, they can assign another person to answer, and that person will have access to the same information. So that's not really an issue for them. And I know this because I used to work a long time ago at the Department of Human Services. And unfortunately, because of that, I know what information may be available inside and what information we can give outside. So no, I wouldn't be able to access that information. But if I tell them which number they have to call or how to approach or address that. And that way, I think I can minimize their frustration. Because I know when you're transferred to one place after another, it gets to a point where you don't want to talk to anyone.
yeah.
And a lot of times I got people that are so frustrated that I kept them talking while I was contacting another person to put them right through it. But unfortunately, that also takes time. And since I have limited access, it's better if they go through the main access the other offices have.
Thank you, Hector. And I know we're over time. I'm gonna ask the same question that Kristen asked Saul, which is, what would you think this alternate dispute resolution should focus on? Like, what gaps do you see that we can provide for residents and landlords?
Well, I will say the same thing that Saul did, trying to bridge the gap of communication with management and upper management. Because a lot of the issues they have is with management. And it's not that management is not doing their job, is that they don't get the specific request or they don't understand the request. And because of that, the tenant gets frustrated and at the same time gets upset.
Yeah.
Because he tries to give his point forward and management doesn't understand or it's unable to, so that creates an issue. And they said, oh, they're discriminating against me, and that's a big issue. Well, if we have upper management make sure that they have the personnel and the means to do their job, then we wouldn't have that many issues. And this is something that the commission can really, help with.
Thank you. Kristen, do you have any other?
I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't think they'll sort of come through tonight. I mean,
But you're writing them so you don't forget them.
yeah, I just wrote, yeah. I think unfortunately, everything that we can do has to be with the landlord and the tenant.
Yeah.
And how to facilitate that, I don't know. But I do think that we as a commission, just in general, probably need to do a better job sending our feedback to the right person when a resident brings a concern up, and then have some sort of mechanism to follow up. I mean, it appears that David does a great job writing some letters and so forth, and and stuff, but does it come back full circle
Yeah.
is sort of the challenge. And the first thing I wrote, the last thing I just wrote down, and then I'll shut up, is that maybe we need to have a form that when someone wants to register their concern, we get their name, their address, their apartment number, if they knew who their landlord is, what was the name of the manager, and sort of help them come prepared with something that we can use to track. So like if Saul gets a complaint and if those people are gonna come to the commission, he would have this form.
Yeah.
If someone is going to, we put it on our website, here's the form to fill out in addition to whatever narrative you want. So we can have some things to help us, like I talked to Sally, I talked to Harry, I live in the South Tower, I live in the North Tower.
So this is a form that the person fills out prior to even coming to the commission.
Right, because often, particularly now, so many things are virtual, but I'm just talking out loud so that we would then have some sort of, office use only area where we would, do our follow-up and we would have some tracking. And then, we could go to the landlord and say, on February 27th, we met with Emily and she mentioned that you, as a representative of this company, blah, 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 and, it would sort of help us have some good information,
Like,
email,
like a
phone number.
Standard.
Right.
So I think what I'm.
Because we want to make it easy for the complainant.
Yep. And what I'm hearing is the biggest role that we can play is getting management's attention.
Oh, sure.
And that's bringing that to the table, and that's.
I'm a landlord.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you that whoever, depending on who CC'd,
Yeah.
things happen in a different manner. And I hate to say it, but I'm a landlord and I'm here to be good for both sides.
Yeah.
If someone just says, I called downstairs and I spoke to your desk staff and, they hung up on me before I finished getting a chance to talk. I can't really do much, but if I coach people about a complaint, tell me the date, tell me the time.
Yeah.
What was your request? The more information we can have, the more likely we are able to resolve it. And then, over historically over time, if we see that over and over again, Randolph Tower is a Ditmar company, it's the same person who they get a complaint about, then it's so much easier to go to the landlord.
Because it seems like once landlord or management is involved, issues are more likely to be resolved if not resolved. So it's like really like just getting people to the.
Right,
Yeah.
to get, because, if you're always talking to David at the front desk.
Yeah.
That's not enough, right? You gotta get to the right person. And so having something to help those people who are having concerns come with some information will help us help them. But that's what I just wrote down, and I know I yammered on, sorry. But I think we could work on that.
All right.
Okay. Anything further in terms of next steps, next meeting? So it's kind of a review of what we've gotten.
Yeah, I think next meeting going more into what we've talked about and how we should go forward.
Okay.
More of a working session.
Yeah, maybe we could make a form or,
Yeah.
or these are the questions that we want to ask.
Yeah. Or these are the, now that we know the areas, like what we need to know about each area to be able to do something with that information. And then we had the 3 areas that we talked about last time with VRTLA.
VRLTA. Yeah,
Those
that's
letters
right.
in
Yeah,
some order. What other regional jurisdictions do, and then Chris was looking more into what we're able to do from a legal standpoint. So we can talk about those things as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Share out.
I'm sure we have a date for that already, but I'll just double check.
Did we do the?
Yeah, the last Monday of the month. So I can set that up.
That would be the 27th. I have it on my calendar already. Good. Sorry, I'm old school. I still keep everything in writing.
Whatever works.
But it works a lot of the time.
Okay, all right, Hector,
And
thank
thanks,
you.
Hector.
Thank you, Hector.
Thank you, night.
Good night.